A billionaire saw her cleaner humiliated on a blind date with just $5. And his life-changed reign whispered against the arched glass windows of the Belrose, one of London's most elite dining establishments. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in golden light, and waiters glided silently across marble floors. The smell of truffle oil and aged wine floated above carefully curated conversations. Charlotte Morgan sat at the head of a long, polished table, surrounded by board members and socialites, people who wore their power like perfume. She wore an elegant black dress, custom-made in Milan, and her expression was composed, polite, distant. She wasn't listening, not really. A man across from her was bragging about a hedge fund acquisition. Another woman whispered about someone's scandalous divorce. Laughter rippled, but it was hollow. Charlotte's eyes flicked to her untouched glass of wine. She had never felt more out of place in a room built entirely for people like her. "I'm terribly sorry," she interrupted smoothly, her voice a practiced blend of grace and authority. "I need to leave early tonight." "Oh, come on, Charlotte," said Gregory Linfield, one of her senior partners, with a smirk. "The night's just starting." "I know," she replied with a soft smile. "And that's exactly why I should go." Without waiting for a protest, she rose, gathered her clutch, and stepped away. Her heels echoed softly against the marble as she passed tables of aristocrats and celebrities, heads turning slightly as she passed. Charlotte Morgan was a known name, England's youngest female billionaire, heiress to one of the largest tech legacies in Europe. Every step she took came with a silent spotlight. Just as she reached the coat room, a low commotion caught her attention. A few tables down, a man sat hunched in his chair, shoulders tight with embarrassment. 3 waiters hovered around him. The tension was discreet but unmistakable. Charlotte paused, her eyes narrowing. "Nathan," she said, almost in disbelief. He looked up and his face flushed crimson. Nathan Collins, her housekeeper, the man who quietly brewed her tea each morning, who never said more than necessary, but always remembered her favorite scent in the laundry. He looked completely out of place in the velvet-cushioned, gold-accented chaos of the Belrose. One of the waiters, arms crossed, spoke in a low voice, unaware she was listening. "Sir, we've been more than patient. If you cannot pay, we will have to call—" "I understand," Nathan said quickly, rising slightly from his chair. I thought my guest would be back by now. He invited me. He said he'd step out. I didn't realize—" Charlotte's heart tightened. She took a step forward. "Is there a problem here?" she asked, her voice cool, commanding. All 3 waiters straightened. Nathan turned, stunned. "Ms. Morgan," one of them said, blinking. "Good evening. This gentleman is with me," she said smoothly. "What's the issue?" Nathan opened his mouth, trying to object, but Charlotte placed a gentle hand on his arm and offered her card to the nearest waiter. "Charge the full bill. Add a 20% tip." "Of course," the waiter stammered, vanishing immediately. Nathan looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "Ms. Morgan, this wasn't— Please don't think I was— It's just Charlotte tonight," she said gently. "And it's okay. Sit." He hesitated. "Sit," she repeated, not unkindly. "You still have half a glass of wine. Seems a shame to waste it." Awkwardly, Nathan sank back into his seat. Charlotte sat across from him. For a moment, neither spoke. The table between them felt impossibly wide. "I didn't know you dined here," she said finally. "I don't. This was an accident. An old university acquaintance invited me, said he wanted to talk about a job. He disappeared after ordering the most expensive dishes on the menu." "Charming," she said dryly. Nathan gave a small, nervous laugh. "Apparently, some people never outgrow cruelty." Charlotte studied him quietly. He was always so composed at the house, reserved almost to the point of invisibility. But here, under the chandelier's light, he looked like someone else. Embarrassed, yes, but proud in his own quiet way. Dignified. "You went to university?" she asked, her voice lighter now. "Cambridge," he said. "Literature and philology. I wanted to teach." She blinked. "You never mentioned." He shrugged. "Didn't seem relevant when I was polishing the mirrors." "That's not fair," she said gently. "Neither is life." His tone was not bitter, just factual. Charlotte felt a sudden, strange sting in her chest. "So what happened? Why work for me instead of a university?" "My mother got sick," he said simply. "It was sudden. She needed round-the-clock care, and I needed work that let me stay in the city. Academia pays in ideals, not in rent money." She nodded slowly, understanding blooming behind her eyes. Nathan wasn't just kind. He was intelligent, self-sacrificing, deeply human. A moment passed. He reached for his glass, his fingers trembling slightly. Charlotte noticed. "What are you reading right now?" she asked. He looked up, surprised. "You're asking me?" "Yes." He hesitated. "Kafka, The Trial, for the 10th time." Her smile widened. "Why?" "Because it reminds me that even the most rational minds can be swallowed by senseless systems, and yet they still try to make sense of it." Charlotte sat back, genuinely impressed. "Do you always talk like that?" she asked softly. "Only when people ask," he said with a faint smile. She looked at him, really looked. The awkwardness in his posture, the soft, intelligent light behind his eyes. She saw past the uniform, past the title of housekeeper. Nathan Collins wasn't a servant. He was a man shaped by quiet storms. Something inside her shifted. The waiter returned with the receipt. Charlotte signed without looking, then turned to Nathan. "Come on," she said. "Let me give you a ride home. You don't have to—" "I know," she interrupted, "but I want to." As they stood and made their way to the door, she caught her reflection in the mirror lining the corridor. For the first time in a long time, she looked alive, curious. She glanced at Nathan beside her and smiled. Nathan Collins had learned, early in life, the value of silence. As a boy, he had been the kind of child teachers noticed immediately, not because he was loud or demanding, but because he listened. He listened to words, to rhythm, to meaning. While other students rushed through books, Nathan lingered. He read sentences twice, sometimes 3 times, tasting them like music. His mother used to joke that he learned to read before he learned to run. Their small flat had been filled with books instead of luxuries. Second-hand shelves bowed under the weight of novels, poetry collections, philosophy texts scavenged from charity shops. On Sunday mornings, classical music drifted from an old radio as his mother cooked. Bach, Chopin, Debussy. Nathan absorbed it all, unknowingly building an inner world that would one day be both his refuge and his burden. At Cambridge, that inner world had found a home. Professors called him brilliant, with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. His essays were precise but lyrical, disciplined yet daring. He had been on track for a doctorate, a future in lecture halls and libraries. He imagined a life shaped by thought, teaching young minds how language carried history, pain, beauty. Then his mother collapsed in the kitchen one afternoon. The diagnosis came quickly. The decline followed faster. Nathan remembered sitting in a sterile hospital corridor, holding his acceptance letter for a funded research program, knowing even then that he would never use it. Choices were sometimes cruelly simple. He packed up his academic dreams and returned to London, trading ivory towers for employment agencies and night shifts. When he took the job at Charlotte Morgan's house, he told himself it was temporary. Temporary had a way of becoming permanent. The coffee shop Charlotte chose was discreet and quiet, tucked between a florist and a bookshop in Kensington. No paparazzi, no whispered stares. Nathan arrived early, as he always did, smoothing his coat, reminding himself that this was unnecessary. She was his employer. The dinner had been an exception, a kindness, nothing more. "Am I late?" Charlotte asked, slipping into the chair across from him. "Not at all," he said quickly. "I just arrived." She smiled, genuinely pleased. "Good. I hate rushing conversations." That word, conversations, hung between them. They talked about nothing at first, the weather, the city, coffee. But slowly, inevitably, the surface cracked. Nathan mentioned a bookshop nearby that specialized in rare editions. Charlotte admitted she hadn't read for pleasure in years. "You run an empire," he said lightly. "That must take time." "It takes noise," she replied. "Meetings, Expectations, people who talk endlessly and say nothing. Nathan smiled. Then maybe you should listen more. She raised an eyebrow. Are you lecturing me? God, no, he said, laughing, just observing. There was an ease between them that unsettled him. Charlotte didn't ask questions out of politeness. She listened as if each answer mattered. When he spoke about literature, her eyes sharpened with interest. When he spoke about his mother, her expression softened, respectful, never pitying. A week later, she asked him to accompany her to a chamber music performance. I have an extra ticket, she said casually, standing in the doorway of her study. And I don't particularly want to go alone. Nathan hesitated. I'm not sure that's appropriate. Is it inappropriate to enjoy music? She asked. No, it's just... Then it's settled, she said with a smile that dared him to disagree. The concert hall was intimate, candlelit. Strings rose and fell, weaving sorrow and joy together in ways words never could. Nathan closed his eyes as the music swelled, letting it wash over him. When he opened them, Charlotte was watching him. Not the stage, him. Afterward, they walked slowly through the cool night air. London hummed around them, distant and irrelevant. You listen differently, she said. So do you, he replied. You just forgot. They stopped beneath a street lamp. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, charged. That was when her friend appeared. Charlotte, the woman said, eyes flicking pointedly to Nathan, I didn't know you were entertaining staff now. Nathan stiffened. Heat rushed to his face. Charlotte's voice, when she replied, was calm. This is Nathan, he's a friend. The woman laughed lightly. Of course he is. Charlotte held her gaze. Enjoy your evening. They walked on without looking back. Nathan's chest felt tight. I'm sorry, he said finally. I shouldn't have come. Yes, you should have, Charlotte replied. She shouldn't have spoken. This is exactly why, he said, stopping. I don't belong in your world. Tonight was a reminder. My world? She asked quietly. Your life. Your circle. I'm just passing through. She stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. Maybe it's not my world. Maybe I've just been living in it. He looked at her then, really looked. Saw the loneliness beneath the confidence. The hunger to be seen without titles or expectations. Nathan took a step back. Charlotte, he said softly, I can't be this to you. Not when tomorrow I'll be ironing shirts and answering doors. She didn't reach for him. She didn't argue. She simply nodded. Then don't be this for me, she said. Be you. As he walked away, Nathan felt the familiar ache of retreat, the safety of distance, the protection of invisibility. But something had already shifted, and neither of them could pretend otherwise. What began as restraint slowly became ritual. Charlotte and Nathan learned the city by foot, its quiet streets before dawn, its bridges humming at night. They walked without destinations, talking about poetry and purpose, about the way words could save a person or ruin them. Sometimes they didn't talk at all. Sometimes their hands brushed, accidental at first, then intentional, a soft promise neither dared to name. Their intimacy was careful, private. Stolen moments in bookshops, shared silence on park benches, music playing low in Charlotte's living room while rain traced the windows. They did not define what they were becoming, as if naming it might fracture the fragile balance they had built. Nathan still returned to his room at night with a discipline born of fear. Charlotte still woke to meetings and markets and men who mistook confidence for ownership. Yet between them, something steady formed. Quiet, defiant, alive. It could not remain hidden forever. The invitation arrived embossed in gold, a high-profile charity gala benefiting global education initiatives. Charlotte was expected to attend. Cameras would be there, investors, politicians, old money and new. She stood in her bedroom, dress laid across the bed, staring at the invitation as if it were a challenge. Come with me, she said to Nathan later that evening. He looked up from the book he was holding. As staff. As my guest. The silence that followed was thick. Charlotte, he said carefully, that's not wise. She met his gaze. "It's honest." He exhaled slowly. "And when they tear you apart for it, then they'll finally be honest too." The gala was held in a historic London hall, glowing with chandeliers and expectation. Charlotte stepped out of the car first, cameras flashing. Then Nathan followed. The air shifted. Whispers cut through the crowd like blades. Eyes narrowed. Phones lifted. Nathan felt every gaze land on him, measuring, dismissing, condemning. Charlotte offered him her arm. He took it. Inside, the reaction was immediate. Conversations paused mid-sentence. A board member's smile faltered. A donor turned away entirely. Charlotte introduced Nathan without apology. "This is Nathan Collins," she said, voice steady. "My partner." The word rippled outward, detonating. By morning, the tabloids had found their angle. Headlines screamed scandal. Speculation bloomed. Gold digger. Employee seduces heiress. Power imbalance, betrayal of class. 1,000 assumptions, none rooted in truth. Charlotte's phone rang non-stop. Her brother was first. "Have you lost your mind?" he demanded. "Do you have any idea what this does to the family?" "This does nothing," she replied calmly. "Your reaction does." A senior partner followed, then another. One investor was blunt. "Fix this," he said, "or we pull out." Nathan read none of it. He didn't need to. The looks changed. Conversations stopped when he entered rooms. Even the staff at the house grew distant, uncertain how to place him now. He overheard whispers, felt eyes on his back. Then came the meeting. A man Nathan had never met asked him to sit in a private office downtown. He slid a check across the table. "Walk away," the man said. "Quietly take this and disappear." Nathan stared at the paper. The amount was more than he had ever held in his life. He didn't say a word. He tore the check in half. Then again, he stood, left the pieces on the desk and walked out. When Charlotte found out, she didn't speak for a long moment. Then she took his face in her hands and rested her forehead against his. "Thank you," she whispered, not for staying, but for being exactly who he was. The pressure intensified. A special board meeting was called. Charlotte entered the room alone, dressed simply, without armor. They spoke first. About optics, about risk, about legacy. She listened. When they finished, she stood. "If loving someone with integrity, brilliance, and compassion offends you," she said evenly, "don't invest in me." The room froze. "I will not apologize for choosing truth over comfort," she continued. "If my success depends on denying my humanity, then it was never success at all." She walked out without waiting for a response. The fallout was swift. Contracts dissolved. Partnerships ended. Losses tallied in the millions. But something else happened too. Messages arrived. Quiet ones. From teachers. From students. From strangers who had seen themselves reflected in a love that refused permission. Support grew. Not loud at first, but real. Charlotte and Nathan stood together in the wreckage and felt no regret. Love, they learned, was not fragile, it was disruptive, and it was worth everything. The building wasn't much to look at, a converted train depot tucked between aging warehouses in East London. The windows were tall and drafty, the floors scuffed, and the walls bore the faded ghosts of a different time. But to Nathan, it was sacred ground. This was where change had begun. Months after the scandal, Charlotte and Nathan co-founded the Morgan Collins Foundation, a bold initiative dedicated to providing education, mentorship and resources for underserved youth across the UK. The vision was clear: give brilliant, overlooked minds the tools to thrive, strip away the cost, keep the dignity. But Nathan had one condition. "I won't be a figurehead," he told Charlotte as they stood in the empty space that would become their school. "I won't be given anything I haven't earned." She smiled. "Then earn it." And he did. Nathan taught literature courses 3 days a week, led seminars on language and storytelling, and mentored students one-on-one. He built the curriculum from scratch, integrating philosophy, social theory, and critical thinking into a program that felt more like purpose than education. His students adored him. They came from places the world often forgot: council flats, broken homes, schools that gave up on them too soon. Nathan didn't. He learned every name. He read their essays twice. He asked hard questions and gave real answers. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. As the foundation grew, so did its impact. Partnerships formed. Scholarships were offered. Universities took notice. And slowly, the media began to shift its tone. The headlines that once mocked him began to change. From scandal to scholar, Nathan Collins redefines what legacy looks like. Heiress turns educational advocate, love with purpose at the core, one man's fall, a generation's rise. The world was watching again, but this time differently. And then came graduation day, the first class, 32 students. 32 stories of resilience, rebellion, and redemption. The ceremony was held in the same building where it all started, now renovated, alive with laughter, families, and applause. Nathan stood at the podium, a simple suit replacing his old uniform. Behind him, a mural painted by his students stretched across the wall, a tree made of books, each leaf inscribed with a name. He cleared his throat. For a long time, he began, I believed that dignity was something you earned by playing by the rules, that if you were quiet enough, useful enough, grateful enough, you'd be left in peace. He paused. But I was wrong. Dignity isn't earned. It's recognized. And every one of you, every dreamer, every fighter, every young person who walked into this place, not knowing if they belonged, you taught me that. He looked out at the crowd. How you taught me that brilliance isn't found in bloodlines or bank accounts. It's found in the courage to keep showing up, to write your own story, even when the world tells you not to. His voice didn't shake. It rang clear, strong. I am proud to have been your teacher, but more than that, I am grateful to have learned from you. Silence, then applause, then a roar. The standing ovation rose like a wave, students pounding their hands together, families crying, mentors cheering. From the second row, Charlotte stood quietly, tears streaking her cheeks. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. That night, the clip of Nathan's speech went viral. Millions watched. Something in his voice, its quiet certainty, its calm defiance, touched a nerve. Donations poured in. Letters arrived from across the globe. But more than that, perceptions shifted, not because Charlotte had defended him, but because he had become undeniable. 2 years later, under a sky painted with soft gold, Charlotte and Nathan married on a windswept hill outside Bath. No cameras, no press, just a small circle of people who had walked beside them. Former students, a few family members, friends who had stayed when the world stepped back. Charlotte wore a simple dress, Nathan, a navy suit with ink on his fingers from grading final essays the night before. They exchanged vows beneath an old oak tree, laughter mingling with the breeze. I don't promise perfection, Nathan said, only truth. And I don't promise calm, Charlotte replied, smiling, only fire that never burns out. When they kissed, there was no applause, just silence, sacred, sincere. Afterward, as the sun dipped low, they walked through the tall grass hand in hand. Do you ever miss the world we left behind? Nathan asked. Charlotte glanced at him. We didn't leave it behind, she said. We changed it. He smiled. We? She squeezed his hand. Always. They paused at the edge of the hill, wind brushing their faces. Below them, the lights of the foundation flickered on, classrooms ready, doors open, the future waiting. Love that crossed boundaries had not only survived, it had rewritten everything.